right, Brad, we are back. No Giants baseball, but still Giants
Nope.
news to talk about, as well
Yeah.
as you know what we're gonna do. We're gonna save all the Dodgers, all the mirth about the Dodgers. We're gonna save that for the end of this show, so that we can end on a very happy note.
I'm tired of celebrating. I got worn out from celebrating the Dodgers loss. Whew. Tiring to hate so much.
So you'd think that season is over. Me buying any Giants merch or hats or anything, we'll wait till next year. Nope, I had to find Facebook. Showed me, sort of the 70s version, late 70s version of their color scheme, ringer tee. I was in the Facebook using my previous searches for stuff and then showing them to me again in the Facebook feed. It's very smart.
You keep saying that out loud, and it's never going to stop, man. They're going to get us over and over again.
You know what else gets me is Fanatics gives you like a couple bucks here and there for a purchase. So you're like, I got $5 in there. It's $20. What's $20? Come on.
Exactly. I have $4.86, and I keep getting emails about it. And I go, I know I'm going to get in there, but I think I want to get in there and get like a cool San Jose State T-shirt. I don't have any San Jose State T-shirts, or like kind of a flat build San Jose State hat or something.
I want one too. I want one too.
Yeah, because I don't live where you live, so I can't hop over to the university and just grab stuff. So yeah,
the university website is actually the best place to buy stuff. Still, the library website is still the best. The student store is still the best place.
But there's no $4.86 Fanatics credit.
Exactly, so, and I that would be good to go back on campus though, and go check out the store, because I've been back on campus, I would say, since we graduated, outside of going to games, because I have been to a couple basketball games and a couple football games over the years. Let me think about this. When would I have graduated? 99? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was because I graduated December of 98. And Denise was spring of 99. So I think you were right around there too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We've been out of college for 20 years. What the hell?
Yeah.
But I have been on campus since then. I remember before Brian went to U of A, hot take Bri, I was like, let's just go check out San Jose State. I think he may have set it up, or his mom set it up, and I could tell there was no way he was going to San Jose State. It was just he probably just did it so I wouldn't get sad. And then I went again, but I just kind of hung out and just wanted to see what was going on. And it's it doesn't look too much different, which I don't know if that's a good thing, but it looks pretty similar from when we were there. They have those statues of John Carlos and the fist in the air and stuff. Yeah. So that's cool.
That's something I haven't seen yet. And speaking of that too, so the older one, she's 16. So in 2 years, she's a junior. So actually in like a year and a half, she's going to be off to college. So we're going to do the tour around kind of some West Coast stuff. So we're going to hit Chico in about a month. But we talked about hitting the Bay Area and then going down to San Jose State and checking it out.
Fun.
So yeah.
If you guys go to San Jose State, you need to tell me.
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna come and pretend like I still have a child who is of college age. Just so
if we go, it's going to be during the summer. So we're going to a Giants game too. So I've already told Denise. I said Garrett's getting the call. My brother-in-law is getting the call. Everybody's getting the call. Who's down there? We're all going to a Giants game together. Harveen can join us.
Yeah. And what about Nick? Is he
Nick could go?
He might be still sending negative text during the game though.
That's all right. Hey, I'll put tape over his mouth and we'll take his phone away and he can sit and we'll put a straw in there so he can have a beer. But yeah.
No, that'd be a blast. All right, let's get into some stuff here.
Yeah.
I do have a fun story when we get to our what we are drinking today. I have a fun story about where I was and what I picked up. And I have some photos to share for people watching us on video. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But there is some news, and I was a little taken aback, I have to admit, when I heard that Bruce Bochy was being considered for the Texas Rangers job. I don't know as far as a formal interview or an interview process, but it sounds like he met with Texas. And I've even seen things where they're like, oh yeah, like he's their number one, like that's who they want. And that leads me to believe that it's maybe it's like, does Boch want to do this again? Is he, is he healthy to do it again? He's had some issues, but he's been upbeat about them. So I don't sense that they're of any real danger for him. But he's been chilling for a couple years. He's got the wine, hanging out, looking at his 3 rings. I don't know. Texas spent all that money in free agency last year. Corey Seager had a really good year. Not sure about Simeon so much, but yeah, I don't know. I'm a little conflicted here. I selfishly don't want him to go back out there because I want him to be, he was with the Padres and took them to the World Series, but he's synonymous with the Giants of the 2010s, and I kind of want it to be that way. But maybe he's got the itch. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? It was kind of a tough pill to swallow when you first saw that, but you knew it was coming. I mean, it was a couple years in the making.
Yeah.
We've heard about it. We've speculated about it. He's going to come out of retirement at some point. The White Sox job might be there for him too. For Bochy, it's going to have to be a place that's not heavy on analytics.
Yeah.
He can do some of the analytics, but I mean, he's made comments lately that has pretty much has alluded to the fact that he wants to manage the game.
Yeah.
Joe Madden, his interview recently where he just kind of tore into the Angels organization and said, we had some games in there where that I went to a game and I was told by the front office that these 3 pitchers are not available tonight. He said, no, they're available. I mean, they're ready to go and they can pitch. And they said, no, they're not available tonight. Due to this analytic breakdown of why we don't think they're available, you can't use them tonight. Can you imagine Bochy managing in that atmosphere? That is not going to work.
Well, he did, he did make some slight changes when Farhan came on board and, working together. You wouldn't see a Madison Bumgarner 2014 with the way that things are going. But yeah, that is a big difference. And it's kind of crazy how things changed so quickly, right? Like I wonder what the pivot is. And we could probably look back at statistics and look at innings pitched and see when does it start going down. I'm actually doing this with basketball. So basketball season is right around the corner. Tomorrow night, Tuesday night, Hot Take Brian and I are going to do a special late night edition of the Death Lineup post Warriors Lakers.
Very awesome.
I got NBA the league pass, so they're streaming every game. You're basically paying $20 a month or whatever to watch whatever, like out of market games. You just can't watch your own team. So you can't get around that. But they also give you the finals of every year since 2000. And so I'm kind of watching the 2000 finals between the Lakers and the Pacers. And this is very early on. And I'm going to go through I may not get through all 22 finals, in a whole year, but this is like what I'm doing is I'm actually going on the elliptical. You know how boring the elliptical could be?
I do.
Here's this is my project. I'm using it to study but basically my hypothesis is that from the mid 80s, when the NBA becomes the NBA is fantastic and it's Michael and Larry and Magic, from that point until the year 2000, I think basketball actually devolves. It goes backwards a little bit. And some of that is because Michael Jordan was such a great one-on-one player. Then the centers kind of take over, and then it's like Shaquille O'Neal. And so it's very predictable, dump the ball into the post. And so I'm watching it. And then, but if you watch basketball today, so now 22 years later, it's vastly different from 2000. And it resembles more the mid 80s. If the 3-point shooting was a big deal in the mid 80s, just the way that they move the ball and they're trying to score quickly and get the defense on there. So all that to say, I need to figure out what that tipping point was for baseball when the analytics just took over the game. I'm sure people who are a little bit younger than us and have been following this analytics movement for much longer than us, or just studied it, they probably know. But that's fascinating, because 2014 is not that long ago, when Bumgarner's coming out to throw the end of that game in Game 7 after having pitched just a couple days before. Like, that is not that long ago. To see what we see today, which is, guys going into the 6th inning and being great, and then you're just like, oh, we're turning it over to our 3 or 4 relievers who throw 100 miles an hour.
And I think you can, I mean, honestly, this kind of ties in to our new GM that we're going to talk about later. But the Houston Astros were kind of kicking into some of that in the early 2010s, 11, 12, 13. They were starting to kind of grow that. The Tampa Bay Rays were starting to kind of grow that as well. The A's, sabermetrics, they were starting to kind of grow that. And I think it was more of a way to like, how can we field a team and be cheap asses? I think that's kind of, maybe how it even grew, just from a fan perspective. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think it was growing, but it hadn't made its way into the mainstream yet. And as you're seeing now in the playoffs, I think we're starting to see a little bit of a more lean to, and now that we've gotten through the COVID years and the short pitching and everything else that they were trying to get arm strength back for the starters, I think we're starting to see a little bit more of the, stretching out of starters.
Yeah.
You see the Dodgers didn't have that. They didn't have stretched out starters. They'd pull their guys in the 5th, and then they'd have to eat 4 innings from the bullpen. I think we're starting to see that's not successful. But if you have a San Diego Padres, you have Yu Darvish, you've got Snellzilla. I mean, you've got Joe Musgrove. You've got these guys who can stretch you out to the 7th, maybe even the 8th inning if they need to get there.
Yeah.
And then you've got the shutdown hater. I mean, I kind of see us going back to that a little bit. So maybe this is a good Bochy environment for him.
Absolutely shut down, by the way, too. You had mentioned to me, and I was a little nervous, and we'll talk about that game at the end of the show. I was a little nervous, and you're like, nah, he's been shut down. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And he went through those guys like a knife through butter, man. That was awesome. And he's not touching 99. He's throwing, 95 and then just breaking stuff that's hard. That was really fun.
But even his 95-mile-an-hour fastball had tail. I mean, so much tail. And again, if you've got guys who are looking for that pitch, and then they're going to say, well, we're going to get a launch angle on it, and we're going to do this, and that. He just went out there and he just threw. I mean, he just threw the baseball, did what he did earlier in the season, had that really nasty blip there in the middle of I think we kind of touched him up quite a couple of times. And then after that, he was just awful towards the end of the season. But man, as you see, the Dodgers probably want a guy like that too. They don't have a closer. And that was the other thing too, is the Dodgers get that 5 innings from their starter. And then all of a sudden they go, hey, mix and match the next 4 innings. Let's see what happens. They didn't have a guy. They didn't have a Kenley Jansen. They didn't have a Craig Kimbrell was not the guy. They traded for him, and he ended up not even being on the roster. So I think they're in dire straits when it comes to their bullpen right now.
Yeah. Can you imagine if Rodon is throwing, 7 shutout innings, and then all of a sudden Giants are up 1-0 in the playoffs? Now, this is obviously dreamland because we didn't make, but the fact that Philadelphia is in the NLCS makes me think that the Giants were not that far off from being able to play with these teams. But imagine, Rodon goes 7, Giants are up 1-0. All of a sudden, Kapler bring in Tyler Rogers for the 8th. The Giants fan base would just explode. Like, what is going on? This is terrible.
That would be a huge problem. That would be a gigantic problem. And I mean, that kind of brings us to Gabe Kapler. And with our new GM, is this going to be the way we're going to go going forward? Are we going to stick with the analytics? And I would like to know. I'd like to know more behind the scenes. Like Joe Madden, like I said, he gave us some really awesome behind the scenes stuff in his I like to call it his exit interview. It's more like his FU interview. but I'd like to hear more from us. Like, how are we doing this? How are we choosing our relievers? How do we know who's available each night? And are guys just available? because Kapler still seems like a little bit old school when it comes to crunch time. If you're in a do or die, 3-game series late in the season, he seems like it's just kind of like everybody's available. All arms are available. We're going to throw guys out there. But again, I'm going to go back to that damn 3-pitcher minimum rule that I want to go away, because that's what I miss about old school baseball is, bring a guy in, lefty pitches to this lefty, and then you got 2 righties up. All right, he's out. Let's bring in the next guy. He's going to pitch to these 2 guys. That was fun. That was fun.
Yeah. Okay, well, we also had one of the best lefty pitchers in Javier Lopez too. So that's what also made it fun. Okay, so I felt as well. Though I feel like Affelt pitched, especially when it counted well to both sides, whereas Lopez was like mostly a lefty guy. All right, so we'll know more about Bochy and stuff, as I imagine, as we get closer to the actual end of the season once this World Series is over. But let's talk about last week. We did our show, and literally minutes after we finished recording, the Giants hired a general manager. Now, his name, phonetically, it looks like you would pronounce his name Putila, but from what I understand, it's patella, like the kneecap.
Okay. All right.
Pete Putila from the Astros regime is coming on as a general manager. He was in the running when the Giants signed Scott Harris a few years ago. So they already had the file on him. And Zadie teased this in his end of the year meeting with the media by saying he's just going to or this should be done fairly quickly. So we should have known that was a hint. Like, yeah, it's somebody that we know and that we interviewed before and is on our radar. Now, this is a young dude. I think he's in his early 30s still. He's been in baseball for a while. The one thing that is kind of being swept under the rug is his participation, or not, according to him, of the Astros cheating scandal. Now, I think Giants media is kind of having fun with it by saying, oh, yeah, of course he wasn't involved in this thing. And I can't imagine that he wasn't, at least to a degree. Like, he's not like the mastermind, right? It's always been said that the players were kind of the mastermind.
Yeah.
But the fact that he would know nothing about this is kind of suspect to me, or as my 7-year-old stepdaughter says, sussy. A little sussy.
It's a little sus.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about him coming in, and what do you think about bringing someone from that Astros regime, cheating regime?
It's funny. So he was at the time of the cheating scandal, he was the director of player development. He oversaw major and minor league player development while assisting with the integration of scouting technology. He was before that, 2013, he was the baseball operations coordinator. And then he did data research and technology, integrated that into development, player development processes, again, across all the minor league levels. He also traveled with a major league team in 2014 and 15, conducting replay review. It's so hard to say, man. And I have seen on Twitter, and I have heard the funny thing is Giants fans don't have a problem with it because he, if he was involved, he helped take a World Series ring away from the Dodgers. So not a huge problem. But was he involved? I don't know. Probably. I don't think he was involved. I think I think he probably, his technology was being used. He may not have known what it was being used for, because it's not like he was sitting in the dugout and in the clubhouse day in and day out and knowing exactly what was going on with his technology. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Just slightly peeking through the fingers. I'm looking away, but I'm not looking away.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have a problem with it. He was never even interviewed by Major League Baseball when it came to the scandal. They didn't even think that he was worthy enough of an interview to even bother with him. I think you have to look at the end product and who was using the technology, not who developed the technology. Just because you use a phone to rob a bank, you don't call Steve Jobs up and well, he's dead, but you don't call up Tim Cook and say, hey, they used your iPhone to rob a bank. It's not really the way it works. But I'm okay with the hire. I like the hire. I'm very excited about the hire because it kind of puts a little bit more emphasis on player development. He has said in interviews he's extremely proud of the Astros roster and the players that they took later in rounds. Remember, he also stole Yordan Alvarez from the Dodgers. He was part of that trade. And Farhan was part of that trade on the Dodgers side, ironically enough, but now they're working together. So no, I think it's good. You get somebody from the Dodgers and Farhan, you get somebody from the Astros and Putila, and then you take those minds and that whole organizational philosophy, meld it together, and I think you could have a really, really good thing down the line. We are going to miss Scott Harris, absolutely. I think looking at it, though, Scott Harris was a little bit more of the sounding board guy, probably more a bit of the, trades, pickups, roster development, deep 40-man roster. Yes, he knew the minor leagues, but they have a whole minor league division for that of scouts and technology and everything else the Giants do. And I really think Patel is going to help grow that. I think it's going to grow leaps and bounds, hopefully over the next couple of years. Are we going to have him long enough? Hopefully he doesn't, it isn't just here for 2 or 3 years and all of a sudden he's Zadie's
next man up.
Yeah, exactly. Somewhere else. So hopefully, so get him in there, get a bunch of good people underneath him so that if he does go somewhere else, everybody else knows what to do and just kind of plug him in.
Yeah. I'm sure we will not, we won't see much until after the offseason. Then, hopefully we'll know a little bit of what his influence is. But I'll go back to what our good friend Roger Munter said. What I saw him on Twitter from the There Are Giants Substack. He made a comment to say, from what it seems like, Zadie and Harris kind of think the same way, and it'd be nice to bring in somebody who maybe thinks a little bit differently. Now, I don't know if that is Putila or not, but that is there is a possibility that he does, and that can bring a little bit more of a differing opinion into the room, and then maybe the Giants won't sign 75 guys into the 40-man roster.
Yeah, the roster turnover this year was a bit exhausting. That was tiring. I liked it at the start and last year too, and thought, he's finding gems and everything. But sometimes when that happens, you lose a Connor Joe in the mix, and you lose guys like that. But then, making trades like you did, you end up with the JD Davis. You end up getting rid of Mauricio Dubon, but now he's celebrating and having a good time and moving on to the ALCS. It was tiring by the end of the season. So I hope to see that cut maybe in half this year, give some guys some more solid at bats and more time in San Francisco to let the fan base fall in love with some players. So that's what I think on that.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we are drinking before moving on. We'll have one more Giants thing, and then we'll talk about the playoffs as they are now. We are awaiting a Game 5 between the Yankees and the Guardians, and the series is tied at 2. There's a rain delay, so that's why the game hasn't been played yet. But that's the only piece of this 4-team tournament that we are awaiting, which is who's going to make it into the ALCS to face Houston, like Brad said, and to the other side is Philadelphia and San Diego. And again, we're going to wait till the very end of the podcast to talk about that San Diego LA series. All right, let's talk about what we are drinking now. I told I mentioned I have this story. So maybe I'll go first just so I can get mine out of the way. But I was in upstate New York over the whole last week. Literally, we did the last podcast that I did was with you before I came back. And so we went to a place called Beak and Skiff.
Nice.
Which is an apple orchard in Lafayette, New York. And this is a place where you could go and pick apples. And so I thought, wow, that sounds kind of fun. But then my wife said, I haven't been here since I was a kid. And she's like, from what I remember, there's like other stuff. Like there's a store, there's food, there's a distillery. And so we checked it out. And as you see on the photo on the right for you watching on video, they had cider on tap that they make at the orchard. They had apple wine that was available, which we had a little bit of. And then they also had a set of spirits. So I specifically was looking for bourbon, and then we bought Crystal's ex-husband, who was watching our dogs and the kids. And we bought him some whiskey, and the brand is called 1911 because that was when Beak and Skiff opened the orchard. So it's been over 100 years old that this orchard has been around. And fun place. So originally we were wondering and thinking, oh, can you make bourbon with apples? Like, what's going on here? I don't think that is the case, though they do have some flavored bourbons that I think take advantage of that. But I think it's just also a distillery that they have because they're expanding their business and they always wanted to get into bourbons and whiskeys. And so now they had it. And so I am drinking a 1911 bourbon from Beak and Skiff, and I'm drinking it, and this is the other part of it, in a Yeti tumbler to keep the drink cold. Now, you would kind of wonder, okay, people probably mostly use this for coffee. Like it's, it keeps the coffee warm.
We have some for camping. Yeah.
My immediate thought was, when we do this show, I like the bourbon to kind of, I don't mind the water at all. I like the ice melting and stuff, but the glass itself also gets kind of sweaty. And so I was like, oh, this will keep the moisture inside. The only thing that I don't know if I like is I don't know if I like the top on it. I don't know if I like to drink bourbon through the little little hole there. I may eventually just dump the top. I don't know if that's going to affect it, but so I had two things awaiting for this podcast: was this Yeti tumbler and the 1911 bourbon, which is
nice,
which is really nice. I missed the bourbon because we were doing wine and stuff all week because we were at weddings and on flights and stuff. So it was wine, and then I had a sip of bourbon and I was like, this is so good.
Yeah, it is such a difference when you were drinking, like, when I go to breweries and I have beers and we're on vacation, I have beers, blah, blah, blah. And then you go to a restaurant and then you eat some food. And then afterwards you go, you know what? I'm going to get a bourbon. Mm-hmm. And then you take that first sip and you go, oh, that's home. That's like home. So absolutely. You know what you could do with that Yeti is you keep a bourbon glass next to you. And when you're ready for a drink, you pour it into the bourbon glass.
Into the glass.
Yeah, why not? It's extra work, but who cares?
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Huh.
Yeah, it's one extra step.
Yeah. All right, what about you?
All right, so Denise was at, I think it was Monday when we were doing the show. She was at Trader Joe's. And so you either like pumpkin beer or you absolutely hate pumpkin beer. And I'm one of those rare people who still doesn't know after all of these years. There's like one really good pumpkin ale, Punkin, pumpkin, from Dogfish Head that I really like. Tastes like a pumpkin pie. So I looked at the review of this Howling howling gourds that Denise sent me from Trader Joe's. She sent me a picture and said, "Does that look interesting?" And I immediately said, "Ew, no, thank you." But then I went and I started looking up reviews, and everybody said it tastes like a pumpkin pie. And I said,
"Oh wow,
okay, well, I'm gonna give that a shot." And I said, "Go ahead and grab it." She said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, go ahead and grab it." So I poured my first one the other night. This is my second one. The first sip I took, I thought, "Oh, I made a mistake. I have a 6-pack of Trader Joe's Howling Gourds beer that I'm not really gonna enjoy." But then as it warmed up a little bit, I thought, "Okay, this is not bad." Ginger, cloves, pumpkin. It's a good sipper. It's not one you want if you're thirsty and it's a thirst quencher. Don't get this beer. But otherwise, the color is great. The smell is fantastic. It smells like a pumpkin ale or a pumpkin beer or pumpkin pie. But it's a sipper. It's a mouthful. It's got a lot of flavor. But I figure it's that time of year. The leaves are falling. They're turning color. I'm going to give it a shot. Our mornings now, I don't know how it is there, but our mornings now are like 42 degrees, 40 degrees. So we're starting to hit it. Even though the high today was like 78. But this is how it is in Reno and Truckee Meadows. It's up and down in the fall. So yeah, I recommend it. If you like pumpkin ale, definitely get it. If you're on the fence, it might be a bit much. So I'll go with that.
Wow, there you go. You've alerted people about the good and the bad, right?
The Howling Gourds. I mean, the artwork is awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool artwork. I really enjoy it. And it is Trader Joe's brand, so I think that's I can't remember how they brew it. I think it's Joseph Brow Brewing in San Jose. So
there you go.
There you go.
All right, so one question for you before we turn it over to the baseball playoffs and where we stand, which is Kyle Harrison. Zadie mentioned that he thought he could be, he thought he would be in the rotation next year and maybe sooner than later. Now, this is a guy who hasn't pitched above AA, is still a young dude, has gone through has just gone through the minor leagues for the Giants, has not had anything but success, big time success. I still feel like next year, early in the season, is kind of soon for him. What is your feeling on that?
They must think and they must know that he's got the makeup of somebody who can handle getting knocked around, because that might happen. I mean, that might happen. He might come up and he might get knocked around. But now is a good time because you've got Logan Webb, another year under his belt. So you got another guy who can help you along. You've got DeSclafani, you've got Wood, Jacob Junis. So you do have guys that can take you under their wing, a lot of veterans, and say, hey, this is the bigs, man. This is how it works. If there's issues, this is how you deal with it. So I'm not terribly worried about him pitching early in the season. I used to always be worried about, oh man, if you bring this guy up and he gets beat up, is he going to just be a head case? And then you got to send him back down to AAA, and he's going to be, he's going to have a really hard time. But I don't see that in Harrison. And I'm sure they know better, obviously. So they must see something in him to know that he can handle that kind of pressure and also handle failure and not having success at the major league level, knowing that he will have success at the major league level if he just pushes through.
I think the easy comparison for us is Bumgarner, when Bumgarner came up to the Giants. So Bumgarner came to the Giants in 2009. He had a little bit of a cup of coffee late 2009. He pitched in 4 games, had 1 start, only threw 10 innings. That he was 20 years old. So in the following year, he comes up again and he throws 111 innings. Gets beat. He's not. His ERA is solid. His FIP is not as good as his ERA. So the 3.0 ERA was probably, maybe not as I don't know, what would you say? Not as
Sexy.
true. Yeah. Oh, well, not as true as maybe the 3.66 FIP.
Yeah.
But very soon thereafter, so 2011, his 21-year-old season, 2012, his 22-year-old season, he's a dude, and he is throwing over 200 innings. By in 2011, which would have been his second big league season, he's 11th in the Cy Young Award voting. He never finishes better than fourth, but by his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, by his fifth year as a big league starter, he's fourth in the Cy Young, and that would be his best finish in Cy Young for the National League that year. And 2016, he finishes fourth. So because he is so young, it seems like a nice little comp for Harrison. Now, Harrison is already 21. So if he does come up next year, he will still be 21. By the end of the summer, he will be 22. And it's almost like, could he, replicate what Bumgarner did? I'm looking for Bumgarner's minor league information. So Bumgarner, I believe he was 2007 draft pick. So 2008, he's in Augusta. 2009, he's in Connecticut and San Jose, and also in the bigs. Like, he skipped Fresno, but then in 2010, he did pitch a half a season in Fresno. So he skipped Fresno to get that little cup of coffee, goes back to Fresno. So that's what they didn't do here, which is, and the rules are different. We've talked about this, how you can't just bring up all of your budding major league players because you only have really 5 spots in September. And the rules were different back then. So that's why they were able to bring up a Bumgarner. But it would have been kind of interesting if they did bring up Harrison. He skips AAA, and then next year he starts in AAA for half the season and comes up. But it sort of looks like maybe he's on what the Bumgarner path was. So that's something that we can really follow for next year and see, how long does it take for him to get up? Because that will be, obviously we've talked about this. The fan base needs a little bit of something extra, whether it's an Aaron Judge or whether it's a Trey Turner. Now that Trey Turner's not playing anymore, we can start, thinking about him a little bit more.
Yeah.
Kyle Harrison would also supply that, especially if he succeeds, right? If he comes in and he plays big time. So that will be something that I think the fan base would really, really eat up is Kyle Harrison.
Yeah, and obviously we know he has the ability to miss bats. He's got 211 innings pitched in the minors and 343 strikeouts. Just absolutely ridiculous. And the Giants could use that because, again, you're going to lose Rodon most likely. I mean, they could make him an offer. He's going to be one of the best pitchers on the market. Verlander's going to be out there too. Kershaw is going to be out there. But I mean, the Giants are obviously looking to get younger. They're looking to not put a ton of money into starting pitching. So it makes perfect sense for him to go out there and compete in the spring for a starting rotation spot. I think Zadie said he didn't want to have Junis in the rotation to start the season. They like Junis as that long guy, and they like him kind of, to go back and forth and be a spot starter. And they're going to need, the Giants are going to need like 8 or 9 starters on the season. That's pretty much how it goes. And then you've got Brebbia as an opener and all kinds of different things you can do. But Kyle Harrison, a guy like him in the rotation would, like you said, would really get the fan base going early in the season. There would be a lot of eyes on him for every start. It would be a very exciting. We haven't had, And Rodon, and not taking anything away from Rodon and Webb, it was always exciting when they started. We knew we were going to get a good outing, but it's not like Dia de Cueto, right? I mean, it's not, what I mean? There's nothing like
happy
that.
Lincecum Day.
Yeah, happy Lincecum Day and Mad Bum Day. We haven't had that in a while.
Rally
But
enchiladas.
Right, exactly. So if you can get Harrison and Webb, there's a good 1-2 punch. Again, we don't know what we have in Harrison yet, other than his absolute
Yeah, you're
dominating.
thinking like 3 years into the future if this guy's
Absolutely.
as good as us as advertised.
Yeah, so getting him going at 21 years old, right out of the gate from spring training, having beaten up the minor leagues. I mean, I think that would get the fan base going, and it's not going to hurt him. I don't think it's going to hurt him in any way, shape, or form. And he is going to make some starts in AAA. So even if he does start in the majors this year, right out of the gate, maybe it's because of an injury and he gets a chance, and him and Jelly are up. Because again, remember, Sean Jelly didn't have a really he didn't have a bad last month of the season. He was actually pretty good.
He could also be a little bit of a Junis, I think.
Absolutely. And a mid relief guy, just kind of a guy you can call on if you need that spot start. And maybe you go Junis for 2 or 3 innings and then Jelly for 2 or 3 innings, and now you're in the bullpen. But yeah, I mean, I think the Giants are going to have some flexibility in their starters next year. It's just kind of what happens in free agency. Who did they end up getting? And I want to see Putila's big board, man. I want to see what the big board is.
Well, Zadie did say they're going to be active, right? He said that. I don't know if active means coming in second place on everybody. It better not mean that. But
that's not active enough for us, man.
No, he can't do that. We've come in second for too many guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bryce Harper and Giancarlo Stanton and maybe even Seiya Suzuki last year.
Yeah, John Lester, remember that whole thing?
Oh yeah. Who knows? I wonder where we finished in the show high sweepstakes. That would be interesting to know.
Yeah, I'd like to know that. I don't know. I mean, we'll find that out someday, probably. But I think maybe after his $30 million 1-year contract next year, maybe we come in first place on that in 2024.
That would be awesome. He would be like one of the biggest fan favorites in history.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. He would be absolute Bonds stardom territory, hands down. Yes.
All right. We'll end this talking about the playoffs. We both had predictions last week. One of our predictions was that we couldn't think of anybody beating the Dodgers, so we were hopeful that the Braves would do it. And in fact, the Braves didn't even get to where that they could face the Dodgers, but neither did the Dodgers get to where that they could face the Braves. But you made a really, really key point, I thought, based on how all this stuff came out. You said the teams who were playing in the wild card round had a leg up early in the series, game 1, against these teams who were kind of kicking back and waiting for the wild card series to be done. So I thought that was pretty good because Cleveland and Philly won game 1 in those series. So that was you were right on about that being a big deal.
Yeah, I thought, and again, I just thought it was more for like the first game, maybe the second game, but mostly the first game. And I thought, okay, here it goes. Don't be surprised if all 4 road teams.
Actually, I screwed up. 1. I got that wrong. New York did win game 1, but Cleveland took game 2 and game 3.
Yeah, and New York had to come from behind. Houston had to come from behind. I mean, everybody had to come from behind.
It was the Houston one that I was thinking of because Seattle had the lead, and then Houston and out he just hit that bomb and it was just over.
Yeah, Jordan was just, I mean, he just had an insane series, and I can't wait to watch him in the ALCS.
Oh yeah,
he's one of my favorite players to watch. The guy just crushes the baseball. But yeah, I mean, it was almost 3 out of 4 road teams won. Because Seattle was up 7-3 and they just gave it up. But I think, but of course the better teams kind of float to the top. So that's what happened in Houston. Houston far better than Seattle.
Yes.
And really, it's going to be a fun game 5 tonight. The Guardians and the Yankees. New York is just going to be insane. I think they're like not even going to check in for another hour to see if the game is going to get started. So they might not even start until like 10 or 11 o'clock New York.
What if
time.
they have to postpone it until tomorrow? Series the ALCS is supposed to start on Wednesday.
Yeah, so they're gonna have to. I mean, they're just gonna have to do it, and they'll probably play like a 10 a.m. game or something like that tomorrow if they have to postpone it, because the NLCS starts tomorrow, right? And that's
Yes.
the primetime game.
Yes.
So maybe it's like a 1 o'clock game or something like that for the Yankees and Guardians tomorrow. But I think they're going to do everything they can to get it in today. But it was crazy. Those were some fun series. Watching the and going to San Diego. Oh my gosh. I mean, San Diego was, I couldn't take, as much as we hate the Dodgers and we just dislike the Padres, you couldn't take your eyes off of that series if you're a baseball fan, because San Diego was lit AF. That's what the kids say. They were lit AF. That place was rocking, and everything that happened and the emotion on the field from the players, I was eating it up, man. I was loving every bit of it. And then back in the Philly Atlanta series when Rhys Hoskins,
oh my God,
I sent you the tweet on that when Rhys Hoskins hit that home run and then spiked the bat. I was like, I don't know if that's necessary, like in the third inning to spike the bat, but hey, that's where we're at in baseball.
Okay, can we talk about Naylor?
Yeah, absolutely. Rocking the baby.
So I've always been okay with Griffey and Bonds pimping home runs. Like I always thought it was dramatic. It was confident. It was like, I'm a really good ball player. This is a no doubt home run.
Yeah.
And that's always been fine to me. Now a lot of older fans had problems with the pimping of the home run. Some pitchers have problems with that. I think Mad Bum still has a problem with people pimping his home run or doing the slow.
My grandfather did not like the Bonds home runs. He liked Bonds, but he did not like the home runs being hit and standing at the plate and then walking across home plate and pointing up and doing. He didn't like any of that stuff. Old school guy.
Yeah. So the way that I viewed it was because we also played. So there's a little bit of like context of like in our high school games or in our semi-pro games, like it's almost even more competitive than it is in the big leagues because you're playing only because you friggin' love baseball so much as your body is breaking down. But the home run trot always felt like, okay, that's for the hitter. The pitcher may feel disrespected a little bit, but ultimately I never felt that it was intended for the pitcher. It was more like, look at me, I just did this really great thing.
Yeah, exactly.
The Naylor thing was so disrespectful to me. And that's where I have a difference of opinion on pimping a home run or bat spiking a home run. Because that is, you're just so friggin' excited that that's what you do, right? This one was so disrespectful towards the opposition. And that's where I have an issue. I was having a conversation with somebody and he was like, just if you don't want it to happen, then don't give up the home run. And I was like, look, if you and I played checkers and you beat me in checkers and you started to try and bait me by being disrespectful, I would have a problem with that. Like, this is no different. And so that is my issue with the Naylor thing. I just thought, man, act like you've been there for one. Like, he hasn't been there, right? This is a big moment for him. So I get that. But unless there's some context to him doing that with Garrett Cole and there's like some feud between them that I don't know about, Cole said that he was his daddy at some point. I don't know. Whatever it was, I may be missing some of the context, but what I saw was really disrespectful, and I was just like, it looked a little bit. He kind of looked like a clown after doing something really awesome. It kind of took away how awesome that was for me.
Yeah, well, and then they lose the game.
Yeah,
I mean,
and he looks even more like a goofball.
Yeah, on top of it, you lose the game. And Alec Baum, doing that and spiking the bat and everything. Or no, sorry, Reese Hoskins. Sorry, Alec Baum. Reese Hoskins, not that they're listening, spiking the bat on the ground. It's the third inning, but it's a game where it could be an elimination game.
Yeah.
They're at home, crowd's going nuts. He'd been having a bad series too. He hadn't been playing very well. But like you said, I think the key word that you said is baiting. That because spiking the bat on the ground, that's an immediate emotion. He didn't then pick up the bat and spike it every 5 feet around
or
the bases.
Throw it at point at the pitcher and
yeah, exactly, and or start taking it and snap it over his knee and throw half out here and half out there. No, but I mean you're walking around the bases, rocking the baby, and he kept looking at Garrett Cole too.
Oh yeah.
So like you said, the key word is baiting. That was over the top. Unnecessary.
Yeah.
Do I think he should take one to the head tonight? No, I don't think he should take one. The ultimate
them losing the game was the taking it to the head, right?
That's it. And then the ultimate that they could do is beat the Guardians tonight and win the series and move on and say that didn't bother us because they're going home and we're going on. He can celebrate his home run at home with a real baby rocking.
Now I'm still rooting for the Guardians because that was my one upset. I didn't have the courage to take either Philadelphia or San Diego, but I did take the Guardians. I thought the Guardians were playing hot. They were the hot team. They were playing really good baseball at the end of the year, and the Yankees struggled in the second half after having like a really historic first half. Not to say that I want the Yankees to win because I would never ever root for that.
You don't want to admit that.
But there is a little piece of me that says, as somebody who's been watching for a long time, like, maybe Naylor and the Guardians deserve to lose this series because of, whatever that was that we saw. So.
Yeah, and I think one of his teammates had said afterwards, they said, well, it wasn't disrespectful to him because he does it to everybody. Well, it's disrespectful to everybody, I think. But, I don't think that excuses it. But,
yeah.
But yeah, I'm a Jose Ramirez guy, so I would like to see the Guardians move on because a Guardians Astros series I think would be. I mean, we all know that an Astros Yankees series is going to be absolutely insane.
Yes,
they do not like each other. They really don't like each other, and it all stems from the cheating scandal.
Yes.
So that series would be tense and insane. The other side, San Diego and Philly, I don't think there's much history there.
No.
It's just two teams that weren't expecting to be there, and now they're like, all right, let's play.
Have they ever played each other? Like, you're just like, what's a San Diego Philadelphia series like?
Yeah, because I mean, you look at it back in the early 80s, us old guys remember the 83 Phillies and the 84 Padres.
Oh yeah,
that's when those teams were good at the same time, but it hasn't been like that since.
So I guess Bob Costas did some of the games. Yes. I didn't see him do any play-by-play, but a friend posted on Facebook, and he was like something about Bob Costas talking about Gary Templeton stories. Gary Templeton, old Padre shortstop. And so the only Gary Templeton story that I know, it would have been late. I believe it was late 70s, and he may have actually been playing for St. Louis because I think he got traded for Ozzie Smith straight up. Like I think they just switched. They just switched teams.
Yeah.
And so Gary Templeton was voted in as a reserve to the All-Star game. And he said, if I ain't starting, I ain't departing. And so I just said, is it the I ain't starting, I ain't departing story without even knowing what the context was or what Costa was talking about. And he's like, yes, that's the exact story. I was like, okay, the one Gary Templeton story that I know, me and Bob Costas know the one.
There you go. Story. That is absolutely fantastic. I love that.
So let's talk about this Dodgers Padres as we end this show. So I'm on the airplane when Houston and Seattle are going. What did that get? 18? Was it 18 innings?
It was 8. It was a full doubleheader played that night in 18 innings, 1-0.
So I watched like the last 9 innings of that game. I mean, I was reading and watching at the same time.
Yeah.
And so then when I finally switched over after the game was over, it was Padres Dodgers. And I was like, okay, they're early in the game. Dodgers look strong. The starting pitching looks strong. And I was like, okay, we'll see. Get home from the airport. And then I think you texted me, or you texted our Giants chat, and you said, is this happening? And I was like, oh, the Padres are winning. And so I flipped the TV on. Or no, they weren't winning. They had come back to tie the game.
Yeah.
And so
because it was a 3. It was the Dodgers had scored 3 runs in the top of the 7th. And I thought, oh crap, here we go. We're going to go to a game 5 back in LA. And all of a sudden San Diego just single.
And they scored like 5 runs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I flipped it to the game. It was 3-3. And I had actually reached out to you and said, did Dave Roberts actually screw up this pitching change? Because there was, I forget the right-hander's name, but it was his 4th batter, and there was a lefty coming up. And so he lets the right-hander throw pitch 1 in the and so and then he makes the change, and I was like, why wouldn't you make the change before that? And I guess he got the guy up late, like
yeah.
I haven't heard anything about this on whether Dodger fans are frustrated at that. Like, did he get the guy up too late? Like, did he fall asleep at the wheel? I don't know what happened, but to me, I was like, why wasn't that guy in, knowing that the right-hander had finished his 3 batters? Why don't you have the lefty ready like that? Like, the 3 batters is up. You get your lefty ready. And so then it was Cronenworth, I think. And then he dumped a single. Yeah. Soto had stolen second base. The catcher didn't even try. The pitcher wasn't even paying attention. So they had runners on second and third, and it was 3-3. And then Cronenworth just dumps the little single, and Soto flying around third and scores, and it's 5-3. And then in the 9th, when I was worried about Hader, you're like, nah, he's been on fire. And I still don't know what Freddie Freeman was swinging at to end the game.
He just wanted to go home.
I wondered. I was like, come on, dude. Like, what? Like, you're one of the best players in baseball. Like, how do you go down like that?
Yeah.
But wow, I was not as excited as if the Giants had won a game.
Right.
But whatever the second outcome that I would be happiest when it came to baseball, I even when when the Cubs finally won the World Series, I was like, good for them. But here I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, so fantastic, because I said this during the season. That Dodgers team was the best team that I'd ever seen with my eyeballs in baseball.
Yeah.
And I was just like, these guys should boat race through the playoffs. They shouldn't lose. Baseball's not really like that, but man, and then they lose in the divisional series. It's got to suck, because they won 106 games last year, and then they were like, oh no, we're going to be better in 2022, and we're 5 games better. So for them to go out, gosh, that is ridiculous.
I still think the late 80s or late 90s, like 98, 99, 2000 Yankees.
Yeah, I could see that. I think a lot of people thought that.
Yeah, when you talk like best team and you talk starting rotation,
I guess I should have said regular season team.
Well, and that's what the Dodgers are really good at, being a very good regular season team when you don't necessarily need a closer because you're up, 10-3 on the Pirates. You don't need a closer when you're playing teams and you're beating them out of the stadium. But then you get to postseason baseball. If your mid relievers are off and that's what you're counting on for 4 innings And that's what we did all season long, is we had to count, because of all the injuries to our starting pitching staff, we had to count on our relievers pretty much the entire season. That comes back to bite you sometimes. So, watching that with the Dodgers this year, I thought, this lineup is the best lineup I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But when you look at their pitching staff, you go, that's so pedestrian. It's very pedestrian. No Walker Buehler because he's
Walker
hurt.
Buehler got hurt. Yeah. What was Kershaw's situation?
He ended up pitching the second game, and that was it. Because again, in a series like that, you can only pitch. You've got to have a deep rotation. You've got to have a 4 or 5 man rotation. That's why I love this new playoff setup. Everybody, of course, Dodger fans hate it. Braves fans hate it. But you've got to have a rotation.
Yeah.
You need a rotation, especially if they're going to crush and get rid of the days off and there's going to be less days off. Give it to me, please, because I want to see your rotation. I don't want to see, well, we have the best 2 guys. We have the best 1-2 punch, and you're going to see them all playoffs long. No, I don't want to see that. I want to see your team. I want to see your team, all 26 players.
Now, our team was not good enough, but it's why I was, like, man, if they could just get in. When you got Webb and Rodon, you got a chance in a 3-gamer. When you got Webb and Rodon, you have a chance in a 5-gamer. Now, I don't know about where 3 and 4 or what was going to happen there, but or maybe it's just 3 and you come back on short time. But man, like, just the opportunity to just say, okay, our 2 starters are as good as everybody else's 2 starters. Let's go.
Yeah. And that's what I hope we're seeing. Our brass is seeing this playoffs that, okay. Yeah. We can't just ride that and say, well, we have 8 starters. We have 9 starters.
Yeah.
2 of them are great, and the rest are starters. You just can't do that. You've got to go into this series with with the Darvish, with the Musgrove, with the Snell. You just got to be ready, man. And because if your back's against the wall and you go, well, it's Brebbia for an inning, and then we'll see what happens from there. That's not a good strategy. I don't like that strategy, and I want that to change. So
yeah. All right. And here we're like, what were we going to talk about today?
Wait, what? You put it, all you have to do is say baseball. Go. Oh, all right, here we go. Give us an hour.
Totally. All right, so that is it from here. We'll be back next week, and you had mentioned maybe because of the off season and the ability for us to do stuff on the weekends, like if there's any breaking news. Instead of waiting all the way until the full week to talk about it, maybe we'll come back on a Saturday. And we know that Ash usually has the weekend open. We could possibly bring him on as well. I know he was posting some of his pieces on the Giants in our group, and we could always bring him in on those shows as well.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
we'll have some. We have some guests who have been hanging out with us prior. Like I said, Roger and Darren Chan from KMBR, and his season is over, so he's hopefully relaxing a little bit, taking a break. But I know he
maybe in Hawaii with John Miller.
Yeah, I know. But he's always willing to talk. So we'll try and figure out some folks to talk to, it'll be fun. So next week, same time, same place. There will also be opportunities for us to maybe delay a day, or maybe even take some time away, but we'll keep everyone in the loop on that. It's the off season. Like Bags and Brisbee are going dark, I think, completely. So we're not going dark. We never go dark.
No, man.
All right.
Like James Brown. We're like James Brown, but there's 2 of us.
All right. We will talk to you next week. For Brad, I'm Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.